So, as Craig kind of announced earlier, this is going to be my last Sunday here for a while. I've been interning with all of the staff really for about a year and a half now. It's been awesome. I can't say thanks enough. I was kind of reflecting back on the first time that Craig put me up here to speak was actually almost a year ago last Ash Wednesday. And in my sermon, I talked about how my car was making a weird sound and something was probably broken, but I never paid attention to it or got it fixed because I was always in a huge rush, which always made my dad really happy when he would find out like a few months later that this had been going on for so long. So I talked about that in my sermon, and this was the first time I'd gotten up. And after the service, I think I had 6 different people from this church come up and either offer to look at my car, to fix my car, or if they couldn't do either of those things, they gave me a slip of paper of someone good that I could go to get my car looked at. And ever since then, my experience at the Water's Edge has been exactly like that. Anytime I need something, you guys have been here. You've looked out for me. The staff has taken a ton of time to invest in me. All the volunteers have taken time to invest in me. Even your kids have kind of been nice to me at youth group. The Sunday school kids, I cannot say the same for them. So work on that, elementary parents. I'm just kidding. They're all nice. Yeah, I was talking to some of the high school students in the back before this, for some encouragement before getting up here, and they go, "Yeah, don't mess it up there. We're watching." And I was like, so they've been helpful this whole time. They've been great. But really, I can't say enough for everyone in the Water's Edge. They've done so much for me, even giving me a place to live so that I could stay out here as long as I have. I'll be going to Europe for about 4 months. I've been following Craig around all year, and he said he was going on a sabbatical, so I said I'll go on an intern sabbatical for 4 months also. He has to take classes and stuff on his. Mine's just a vacation. So that's where I'll be. I'll be back this summer though, so I'll save my longer thank you speech for at the end of this summer, but I'll be back in June, and you'll see me around throughout the summer. So I just wanted to say thank you to all you guys before I got started. Like I said, we've been going through the 7 Mile Miracle series. Craig's done the first 2 weeks. We're talking about the last 7 things Jesus said while he was on the cross, while he was being crucified. These are obviously 7 very important things if he chose to say them, and if the people chose to write them down and record them. These are important things he's talking about. The last 2 weeks ago, Craig talked about forgiveness and how, while Jesus was being beaten and crucified, he still said, "Father, forgive them." And he talked about, how important forgiveness is, but also what forgiveness is not. It's not, permission for that person to keep doing those things to you. It's not permission for them to keep going about doing what they're doing. It's not, you saying you forgive someone is not telling them it's okay. And Craig talked about that. And then just last week we talked about the criminal that was crucified next to Jesus and how as he was dying, he repented and he said, "Jesus, I believe in you. I want to be with you in heaven." And Jesus said, "Today you will be with me in paradise." And we talked about salvation and what that means and how it's offered to us and to everyone. And so today we're going to look at a third thing Jesus said on the cross, which I just read up there. And we're going to talk about the relationship we have with Jesus. If you're here, if you chose to be here today, you probably have some sort of relationship with Jesus, or someone who you love very much has one and they brought you with them. So either way, we're going to look at what that relationship looks like. And my other job when I'm not here, I'm a paramedic at an ambulance company. And what that means is we just sit at the station all day and wait for the alarm to go off, and then we go do stuff. So there's a lot of sitting around and talking about all sorts of stuff. And a couple weeks ago, we were all sitting there talking. No one had any calls. And the topic of religion came up, which is my second favorite work topic after politics. It's always great to talk about at work. If you're out to eat with your coworkers and the conversation's in a lull, just be like, what does everyone think about God? How do you guys feel about that sort of stuff? It always goes great. It's good, constructive conversation with your coworkers. So we were doing that, and everyone at my work knows that I work at a church, so it makes it even more awkward for me. But this one guy that I work with named Kenny, has no desire to do anything religious, no desire to really have any sort of relationship with God. And I thought it was interesting when he was talking about it. And he was like, my biggest thing about those Christian people and what they believe, he's like, the weirdest thing about it is those people think Jesus wants to like be friends with them. They think Jesus wants to have a relationship with them. They think he like cares about them and is in their life. And I thought it was interesting he said that because, I mean, we do believe that. We do think that. And he was describing it and he's like, I just think like, they think this God created the whole world. He runs everything. He does everything. He's over everything. And then they're going to try and say he wants to like be friends with them. He's like, that's just the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Why would Jesus, the guy who did all this other stuff, the God of the universe, want to be my friend? Why would he even care about me? Why would he have any interest in me? And, you know, I didn't get offended or anything or, you know, argue with him. I just thought it was really interesting because he made a good point. Like, it's crazy that we think that. It's crazy that we believe that. And I think that's what makes it so powerful that that's true. When we look at, in John 15, Jesus is talking about this, and I specifically remember reading this one time in high school because it had a big impact on me. But it says in John 15, and this is Jesus talking, he says, "There's no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. If you are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you slaves, because a master doesn't confide in his slaves. Now you are my friends, since I have told you everything the Father told me." And I remember reading this when I was younger, and maybe you've had this moment in your faith walk too, of I read this, and I was like, whoa, this guy wants to be friends with me, and no one had ever told me that before. I knew that, you know, he was God, and he was the person from Sunday school and church, and he was important, and he was a big deal. And I was supposed to, you know, do what he said, or else, you know, you're gonna feel guilty and you're gonna be in trouble. No one ever told me that he wants to be my friend. And I remember reading that and thinking how crazy it was, but also how awesome it was that he said that he doesn't just, you know, he's not just some historical figure or religious figure in church we learn about who's telling us what to do and how to live and all of that stuff. He's this God who tells us himself that he wants to be friends with us. And that really changes things when you get to that point of, you know, Jesus wants to be my friend. He wants to have a real relationship with me. Here he uses, you know, I'm not your master and you're my slaves. I think before you get to that point, you kind of feel that way of like, Jesus is the master and he says what I do and then I do it as a slave. And he says, you know, that's not our relationship anymore. He's telling his disciples and he's telling us all today, that's not how this relationship works. That's not how it was designed. Like, yes, I'm God, but I still want to be friends with you. It's crazy to think about, and I think even as Christians, we kind of react the same way my friend at work, Kenny, did, of like, why in the world would he even care? Why would he care about me? Why would he want to be friends with me? It doesn't make sense. And I think now when we hear it, it's kind of become cliche, like, oh, Jesus is my friend, Jesus is our friend. They even have those like, Jesus is my homie shirts. I do not own one, but I've seen them. And, you know, we have those things, but I think it's a lot harder for us, even as Christians, coming here every Sunday and on Wednesdays and those sort of things, to really accept the fact and believe that Jesus wants to have a relationship with us. I think that's still kind of hard for us to admit. I remember I always thought like, well, yeah, Jesus, he was like friends with people in the Bible, and then he's friends with like pastors and people that work at the church, and then he's friends with like the people that lead my small groups and work at youth group. But, you know, I'm just a churchgoer. He's not like friends with me. He's just kind of the boss. He's friends with those special people. And again, it's not how it works when Jesus talks to us. You know, every single person he wants to be friends with, even Kenny, who has wants no business with him. And when we start to see Jesus as a friend and we start to accept, oh, he actually wants to be friends with me, he wants like a real relationship with me, not just this master-slave dynamic, it really can change a lot of things about our faith. There's a big difference between someone who wants to obey Jesus but really has no personal relationship with him, and then someone who's gotten to the point where they're on that really close, intimate level with Jesus. And the first thing I always think of, the biggest difference I find is how you communicate with Jesus in your prayer life. You can have a very structured prayer life where, you know, you just come in with certain things in a certain way, and it's, It's not how you would really talk to a friend. And when we get to that point where we have this close relationship with Jesus, our prayer life is just radically different. We can talk to him about anything. We can say anything. We can be honest. When I think of David, who wrote all the Psalms, when you read some of those, not all of those prayers are neat and tidy and perfect. He gets mad at God. He calls God out. He's like, how could you do this? Then he also is on the other side, on his knees, thanking him, doing all this stuff, because David understood that this God of the world also wanted to be his friend, and he communicated with him like a friend, and his prayer life was very real and authentic. I think another thing, before we really realize Jesus wants a relationship, and we're still in that master-slave part of our faith, the thought of church or Jesus or God or the Bible or any of that stuff causes us to kind of feel anxious or guilty, or we have a sense of obligation. Those things don't really get us excited, because we're like, well, I did this, and I'm going to be in trouble, and Jesus is going to be mad at me. And when I was talking to my dad about this before, he's like, oh, well, if you need help, I'll get up and I'll speak for you. And he's like, what is the topic about? And I was like, well, it's about being friends with Jesus. And he was just kidding, but he said, oh, I can't. He's really mad at me right now. There's a lot of stuff. And I hope he was kidding. He's heard my message once today, so he's learned now. But I think a lot of us really do feel that way of, yeah, he wants a relationship with me, but not right now, not after all this stuff that I've been doing. There's just no way. But when you get to that point of like, he wants a relationship with me, he's my friend, it doesn't mean all of a sudden we switch to being perfect, but it does mean that when we come in here, when we think about him or when we pray, we still feel loved and accepted, and like like he's our friend. We don't have those anxious, guilty feelings anymore. I think another difference when we start to have that personal relationship with Jesus, we don't feel the need to be perfect and impress him and kind of put up this fake church us every time we come here. When I have people come over to my house, or I guess my basement right now, Dan and Mary's basement, if it's someone that I'm not really friends with or like an acquaintance, I'm gonna like clean my room. I'm gonna make sure everything's nice. I'm gonna make sure if they need food or a drink or something, I have all that for them. But like if my friends come, like my friends came this weekend, I didn't clean up anything. I did not have anything prepared. If you're hungry, the fridge is there. You have that more casual relationship with your friends or people you're close with. You don't have to impress them or look or be a certain way. And when we get to that point with Jesus, it's the same way. We don't feel like, okay, church, we need to dress up, we need to be nice, we need to do this, we need to do that. Prayer, we need to like really get it right. When we get that personal relationship, it's a lot more relaxed, and it's a lot more like the friendships that we have with our friends here. I think the last thing, and this is kind of a big one, the difference between when we really see Jesus as a friend and when we kind of see him as someone we don't really know, but we know we're supposed to listen to him. When you view him as a friend, it's a lot easier to obey the stuff he's telling you, or to listen to him, or to want to do what he teaches, because you know that he cares about you, and you trust him, and you know that he's looking out for you, so you want to do those things that he tells you. I think I've always heard that phrase of, if so-and-so told you to jump off a bridge, would you jump off? And you're supposed to always say no. But I was kind of thinking about it, and I was like, if one of my best friends, or if one of these people down here said, Leandra, you should probably jump off that bridge, I think there'd be a split second where I'd be like, should I jump off that bridge right now? Because you trust your friends to tell you what's right. And it's the same with Jesus. Don't tell me that. And he's not going to ask you to jump off a bridge, but the closer you get in a relationship with him, the easier it is to follow him, because if he tells you, you should really look into switching careers and take this career, you're like, okay, well, I have a close relationship with this guy. I trust him. He's looking out for me. Maybe I should look into that career. If some stranger comes up and is like, you should probably switch to that job, you'd be like, I'm not switching to that job. I don't know anything about you. When we start to form that relationship and friendship with Jesus, obeying him gets a lot easier. It doesn't make us perfect, but it makes doing all those things easier, and even sometimes more enjoyable. And when I think about how when you're young, it kind of shifts from, Jesus has all these rules and he's the guy from church, to having this personal relationship and friendship with him. It's a lot like your relationship with your parents, or, I know a lot of you are parents, so think your relationship with your kids. When kids are little, the parent in the house, they make the rules, and if you break them, you're going to get in trouble. And so if you do something, you better hide and make sure they don't find out and lie. And, I'm not going to tell them everything about school. I'm not going to talk to them about boys and stuff like that because they're my parents. When you're growing up, they're not necessarily your friends. You like them, but they're not necessarily your friends. If you get in trouble, you still kind of sneak and hide stuff from them. I never did that to you guys. I'm talking about all the bad kids. But you have that relationship when you're young with your parents, and then as you grow up, it kind of changes because you realize, maybe I should talk to my parents about school and boys and friends because they actually kind of know something about stuff I never realized all this time. And, maybe they are kind of fun to hang out with. We actually have a lot in common for some reason. And, I can go out to eat with them and it's enjoyable. I'm not being forced. And your relationship with your parents, your relationship with your kids shifts as you grow up to this master-slave relationship in some households, not ours. I always joke about that, but it shifts from, the parent is just this rule maker to they still have rules, but they're also your friend and they're also someone you can turn to. A lot of kids will figure it out in college. The really lucky ones will get there in high school, and not a single person's ever done it in middle school. So if you have a middle schooler, it's coming later. I was in middle school for 3 years, and I don't know anyone who figured it out then. So don't hold your breath. But our relationship with Jesus goes the same way. When we first get in here, we're like, oh, here's that religious church guy with the rules and the things we're supposed to do. But as you spend more time with him, as you spend more time learning about him and reading about him, it can really turn into that friendship where you trust him. And you have more than just a rule maker and a rule follower, but you have a real personal relationship with him. And when you get to that point with your parents or with your kids, it's so much better than you just trying to tell them what to do all the time and they're trying to sneak behind your back and break all the rules you just said. And the same way with Jesus, it just gets better the closer you get to him and have that relationship with him. But I think still a lot of us, even a lot of us in the church, struggle to get to that point of I have a close personal relationship with Jesus, not one that's just defined by rules and what I should do and what I shouldn't do, but one that's defined by just having a relationship with him and knowing him, and he knows you and you trust him to tell you what's right. And I think one of the biggest struggles for us is when we get into the Bible and Scripture and we read things, we start to view it as like, all right, these are the rules. This book, this is the Bible, this book has all the rules, it's the instruction for life, and it's a theology textbook. And when we view it that way, it's hard to form a relationship with Jesus because all we have here is just stuff he's telling us to do and believe. But when you really look at the Bible, when you get into the Scriptures and really Gospels, what you find are stories. It's stories about Jesus trying to have relationships with people. Does he tell them some things to do and some instructions for life? Yeah, but at the end of the day, the whole story, the whole Bible, when you think of it from beginning to end, is just a whole big story. And the whole entire story is about Jesus trying to connect with you. The whole story is about Jesus trying to have a relationship with you. It starts with Adam and Eve. God creates them to have a relationship with them. And it's perfect, and they're in the Garden of Eden, and everything's great. And then immediately, like most of us, we ruin it immediately. And we break off that relationship, and we strain that relationship. And so then the whole rest of the Old Testament is God just trying to reach out and connect to us, trying to get us to trust him, trying to get us to be in a relationship with him again. It goes on and on and on, all the way into the Gospels. Then we have Jesus, who finally restores that relationship for us, finally tells us, I'm here to be friends with you guys. I'm here to have a relationship with you. And the whole Bible together as one big story is all about God trying to have a relationship with you guys. The whole entire thing is him trying to reach out and connect to you and get to know you and spend time with you. It's not a rule book. It's not instructions for life. It's not a theology textbook. There's a lot of that stuff in there, but at the end of the day, it's a big, long story about God trying to get to know us and trying to get us to want to know him. And when we look at those stories, especially when we go through the New Testament, we can look at Jesus. If you really look through those stories about Jesus, There's a few stories where he's teaching and he's giving lessons and instructions, and then every other story is about him just trying to connect with people and have a relationship with people. And there's a story in Luke 19 where I think he really tries to do this and connect with someone. And it says, Jesus entered Jericho and made his way through town. So what's happening now, people have already heard about Jesus, right, and all the stuff he's done. So he's coming to Jericho, he's coming to visit, the whole town is out, they're lining the streets, it's like a big parade, and he's coming through. Everyone's excited, and there's a man there named Zacchaeus, and he is the chief tax collector in the region and has become very rich. So basically back then, like the chief tax collectors, they're like mobsters of the town. They don't just collect taxes, they take extra money and they extort from people and all this stuff. So not a great guy, but he comes out to this parade to see Jesus, and he climbs up this tree to get a good view, and he's up there. So Jesus is coming by, everyone's, out to see him, and he stops, and he goes, and he's like, Zacchaeus, come down here. And I'm imagining that Zacchaeus was not like, oh, yay, Jesus is calling me down. I'm sure he's like, oh, no, Jesus is calling me down. He knows all the stuff I did. He's going to call me out. I'm assuming everyone in the town, when they saw him get called out, it's like, when you get called to the principal and everyone's like, ooh, and like, here's Zacchaeus is going down. And so he gets called down, and I'm sure he's super nervous. He knows he messed up. He knows he's not a good guy. And here's Jesus, he's here, and he's going to call him out and tell him all the bad stuff he did and tell him how he needs to be better, right? So he comes down, he comes out to Jesus, everyone is watching, and instead of, yelling at him or correcting him or telling him all this bad stuff, Jesus said, I must be a guest in your home today. And I think that's powerful because everyone expects Jesus to yell at Zacchaeus, including him. He thinks he's in trouble, he knows what he's did, and here's Jesus calling him out of the crowd. And instead he says, can I have dinner at your house tonight? He's like, do you want to hang out tonight and get dinner and talk? And I'm sure it surprised everyone there. But the thing is, that's how Jesus is throughout the Gospels. He doesn't want to just correct people and tell people what to do. He wants to have dinner at their houses. He wants to hang out with them. He wants to talk to them, spend time with them. He wants to get to know them, and he also wants them to get to know him. Does he still probably want Zacchaeus to stop stealing money from people? Most likely. But that's not he's not there to just teach him things and correct him and tell him how bad he is. He's there to get to know him and have a relationship with him. And I imagine that, if Jesus came to Millard, we would all go out, hopefully cancel your plans. We're going out. He's going to come down. There's a big parade. We're going to line the streets, all of us. And he comes walking through, and all of a sudden he stops, and he's like, Mike Jasa, get over here. Or whoever it is, I'm assuming it would be Mike. But he told me I could do this. But let's assume it's Mike, just a random guess. So we're all there, it's a parade. All of a sudden he's like, Mike Jasa, you better get down here right now. And of course all of us will be like, ooh, Mike, right? We know what he did. And so Mike gets called to come down. I didn't ask Mike before, but I'm assuming he's not going to be like, oh, yay, Jesus picked me, called me down. I'm assuming, just like all of us, if he said any of our names, that we'd be like, oh, no, he knows about, that thing we did. He knows about how we treated those people. He knows we skipped this thing and those things we thought. It would cause a lot of anxiety for us. And when we're at that point, that's what Jesus is talking about, of that master-slave. If a slave gets called out by his master, they're going to be nervous and they're going to be scared because they know that they're in trouble. But if we all realized, oh, Jesus wants a relationship with us, he wants to be our friend, and Mike gets called down and he's nervous and he's worried about what Jesus is going to tell him and yell at him for, and Jesus just says, hey, Mike, can I come have dinner at your house? Do you want to hang out? I don't think that's what we'd expect, but like this story with Zacchaeus, that's what Jesus does. He doesn't want to just tell us what to do. He doesn't want his relationship to be him just bossing us around and we listen. Just like as a parent, you don't want your whole relationship with your kid to just be you yelling at them and telling them what to do and them trying to do it behind your back anyway. A parent wants a relationship with their child, and it's the same. Jesus wants that relationship with us. He calls Zacchaeus down, and if he called Mike Jasa down, it's not just to yell at him and to correct him and teach him stuff, although he would want to, but it's about having a relationship with us. And I think about like when we have family dinner with our parents, and all our parents want at family dinner is to talk to us or to talk to their kids, hear about their day, hear about what's going on, get to know them more, and just enjoy their time. And this is almost every kid at family dinner. I'm assuming yours are the same, but this is it. And they're eating. And it's like, how was school? Good. What'd you learn? Nothing. What'd you do? Nothing. What are you doing later? Nothing. How's so-and-so? Nothing. Who are you texting? Nothing. And like, that's how so much of like family time goes. And our parents don't bring us down to family dinner to be like, you didn't do your homework and you didn't clean your room and you didn't do this. They just want to have time with us, to enjoy us and get to know us and share life with us. And Jesus is the same way. He doesn't want to just have that formal religious communication with us or a formal religious relationship with us. He wants to share our entire life with us. He wants to be there at church, and he wants to be there when we go home and we're just hanging out and eating. He wants everything with us. And when we get to the story that I read earlier in John 19, and Jesus is on the cross, it's kind of a weird story when you think about it. And I think Kenny from my work would be very confused by it, because here's Jesus, right? He's up on the cross. He's being beaten. He's being mocked and spit at. And he's dying for the sins of the world. It's a pretty big deal. And he says stuff like, Father, forgive them, right? So he's talking about forgiveness. Then he's talking about salvation, also two really big important things. And then in the middle of it, he's up there, and then he sees his friends standing below. And in the middle of it, he calls them over just to say to his disciple, take care of my mom when I'm gone. And then to his mom, he says, take care of my friend when I'm gone. He's just telling them, I'm obviously going to be gone soon. I just want to make sure you guys are taken care of. And it seems like such a small thing compared to the forgiveness of sins and the salvation of the world, that he would take time in this critical moment to just talk to these people and make sure they were taken care of when he died. But it's important to him because those are his friends. He's fully God, dying on the cross for us all, but he's also fully human, and he has a relationship with these people, and he cares about them. When Kenny talked about why would God, he's God of the whole world, he's doing all this stuff, he's running everything, why would he care about me? But here's Jesus at the most important part of his life, dying on the cross, and he's going to take a second to make sure his friends are taken care of, something that seems so minor. Because he has a relationship with them and he knows them personally and he cares about what's going to happen to them when he's gone. It's not just, he's not just up there being like, okay, before I go, make sure, everyone go to church on Sunday and, forgive that guy and make sure you don't do anything bad while I'm gone. He cares about their relationships too because he has a relationship with them. And when you read the whole gospel and you read all these stories about him, it's not just him, I'm Jesus, here's my mission, gotta go, gotta do these things. He sits down with people, he talks to them, he gets to know them. He wants to have that personal relationship, friendship with you. He doesn't want to just boss you around or tell you what to do or, make you live a certain way. At the end of the day, all he really wants is to have that relationship with you. And even when he was on the cross and he saw his friends, he's like, all right, I'm saving the world, but I just want to make sure that you guys are okay when I'm gone. I just want to take care of you guys too. He's a God that takes care of all the big stuff and does all the big stuff, but he's also a friend of ours that cares about every little thing we're doing. He wants to hang out with us. He wants to know us. He doesn't just want to be there for the big moments. And like I said, if you kind of struggle to believe that Jesus wants a personal relationship with you, if you're kind of in that master-slave part of your faith of, he's the boss and he tells me what to do and I listen. Or if you're at the part where like, I need to be this for Jesus while I go to church, or I need to be this in my prayer, and you don't feel quite comfortable with him yet, I just encourage you to just pick any of the Gospels, pick any story about Jesus and read through it, and I guarantee you will find a story about him trying to have a relationship with you. If you put yourself in that story, if you put yourself in Zacchaeus' spot or Mike Jace's spot, and he's calling you out, it goes from a point of anxiety and, oh no, he's going to like ream me in front of all these people, to a point of, that's my friend and I know him and, he might be mad at that thing I did, but he also wants to hang out with me and know me, and I want that same time with him as well. It completely changes that relationship for you. He's a God of the big stuff, but he's a friend in anything, not just the big things in our life. And so I encourage you to kind of look through those Gospels, find those stories about Jesus, put yourself in them. You're just going to keep finding more stories like Zacchaeus of Jesus just wanting to be friends with you, not constantly trying to tell you what to do, but actually trying to spend time with you, get to know you, and have a relationship with you. And I think it's important because in my experience and people I've seen and talked to about this, our best days, like our days we're closest to God, where we feel most fulfilled and content and happy, our just best overall days, are not going to be the days where we're obeying God perfectly and we're on top of it and our prayer was so beautiful and we got to church early and we're all dressed up and we didn't do anything bad yet this morning in the 2 hours we've been awake. Like, our best days are not going to be when we're obeying God perfectly. Your best days are going to be when you believe that God loves you, when you believe God wants a relationship with you. Those will be your best days. That's way more important than you following every rule. Our parents, or if you are a parent, you want your kids to follow the rules, but at the end of the day, you would trade that to just have a close relationship with them. And Jesus is the same way with us. He cares about that way more than anything else we're doing, and when we get that, everything else will start to fall into place. So would you guys just bow your heads and join me in prayer?